All right, good morning, everybody. I'm Bob Gualtieri, Pinellas County Sheriff, and just want to talk to you a little bit about what happened yesterday down here, what we know, what we don't know, and then, of course, I'll take any questions that you have. So, first and foremost, and against this backdrop, it's extremely important that everyone have access to early voting sites, and they have access to these early voting sites unfettered, unintimidated, and in a way that they feel comfortable casting their vote. I mean, that's what everybody wants, that's what I want, and that is the goal, and that is what we're committed to making sure happens. People come down, the law is they have to stay within 150 feet of a polling place or an early voting site to advocate. And as long as they're outside of that 150 feet, they're free to pass out their signs, pass out their literature, advocate, and do the things that are really the hallmark of democracy. And that's what's happened at the 5 early voting sites here in Pinellas County over the last few days. That's what's happening here and what's happening behind me. You can see the plethora of signs, you can see people that have a tent set up, and they're here to advocate for their candidate or their issues that are on the ballot. So yesterday afternoon, that's what was happening here, and then all of a sudden, 2 people arrived, and they were wearing tan khaki pants. They had on blue polo shirts that identified themselves as security guards, and they're also armed, and they're wearing gun belts, and they had firearms. That caused some concern because of, I'd say, the heightened awareness and, of course, the tensions that we see. And people didn't know who they are because they weren't law enforcement officers, they weren't the police, they weren't sheriff's deputies, they weren't St. Pete police officers, and what are these people doing here? So it immediately, on some individuals' parts, caused concern that these people were here to do what we won't allow and what we don't want to have happen, and that is to coerce or to intimidate or to affect the voters as they are coming and engaging in that very important constitutional right. And it started raining yesterday afternoon, and as we found out from these people who they are, we found out that they are security people from a company called Syotos, S-Y-O-T-O-S, and they're out of Crestview, Florida. And what they said, and remember, these are line-level licensed security guards who are authorized to wear a uniform, who are authorized to carry firearms, and if they're hired to provide protection for somebody, that's completely legal. It's lawful. It's not a problem. And what they said, as it was raining before they left, is that they were hired, that's their claim, they were hired by the campaign to provide security at this site for the people who were advocating for their candidate. We have, and I can't stress this to you strongly enough, is that we have absolutely no confirmation of that. We have, in fact, the information I have is to the contrary, that nobody affiliated with President Trump's campaign, with the Republican Party of Florida, etc., hired, recruited, retained, in any way, caused those people to be here yesterday afternoon. So the only thing I can do is refer you to the company itself out of Crestview, and to the Republican Party or to the Trump campaign. But I have assurances from them that they didn't cause those people to be here at this early voting site. So when you're talking about a couple of line-level people who work for a company that were assigned someplace, somebody told them to come here, they may not even know why. They were just being paid to be here to do their job as security guards. So they said that they would be back at 8 o'clock this morning. As you can see, we're well past 8 o'clock. They're not here, and I have no idea whether they're coming back or not. So as literally my phone, email, texts are blowing up last night from everybody about this. And the discussions I'm having with everybody, including the supervisor of elections, is the mere presence of uniformed, licensed, Florida authorized security personnel is not violative of the law. It doesn't violate the law. What violates the law is if you have a firearm in a polling place. They're not in a polling place, they're outside the 150 feet. They are licensed, and this is not violating the open carry statutes because they are licensed security guards in Florida. that have a Class D and a Class G license, which authorizes them to carry firearms and carry firearms openly. And their mere presence does not constitute voter coercion or intimidation. Is some people may see these people who are here, and it doesn't give them a great feeling. On the other side of the coin, it may give others a great feeling because they feel protected. So some people may view the presence, the mere presence, as uncomfortable, and some people may view it as giving them a comfort factor. If those guards who are here, by their conduct, their actions, their demeanor, their words, did something that rose to the level of being voter coercion, intimidation, that's a whole different story, that's a whole different topic. Then it is actionable and it's something we would address. But if you have folks that are here behind me that are advocating for their candidate, and you have people that are standing over here wearing a security guard uniform, licensed to her arm, and all they're doing is just standing there minding their own business, then that does not violate the law, and there's nothing improper, there's nothing wrong, and there's nothing that we're going to do about it because there's nothing we can or we should do about it. If their conduct, again, rises to the level of where they're staring people down, and again, these are hypotheticals, and I want to stress this to you because there's no evidence of it, there's no allegations of it, there's no complaints of it, other than the complaints we got and the concern we got is people just didn't like it. Well, I think one of the things we've learned a lot about lately is a lot of things that people don't like. But we have to work within the law, work within the framework that we're given, and respect everybody's rights. And the people who are here advocating, and whether it's for candidate A, candidate B, or candidate C, everybody has a right here to be here and to advocate for their client, and to do so in a way that is free of any coercion, intimidation, violence, or threats. And just keep this in mind as well, is that, and I don't know who hired these people to be here, but something caused them to be here, and something this morning has also caused them not to be here. They said they'd be here at 8 o'clock. Is that you can view this on the other side, is that it's common knowledge, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, there have been protests in downtown St. Pete, there have been incidents down here, there has been things going on down here, and so it is as equally plausible that whoever was here, they hired these people themselves. And it has nothing to do with the Trump campaign, it has nothing to do with the Republican Party, and maybe these folks that were here that took it upon themselves to pass out this literature, they hired these people as security. I don't know. Bottom line is that their mere presence doesn't violate the law, and we're going to maintain the status quo. I talked to these people here who have set up this morning that are here on behalf of former Vice President Biden's campaign. And I have no problems or issues with them, and they're engaging in lawful conduct and doing what they want to do and what they feel like that they need to be doing. I don't have any issue with it. So we're going to just maintain the status quo. What we are going to do, and we are going to make a change. We had a pretty extensive security plan for all of the early voting sites in Pinellas County, and there's 5, and a pretty extensive plan going into Election Day on November 3rd. And part of that plan was consideration for balancing security at all the early voting sites and at the polling places against not having a law enforcement presence, because we didn't want people to feel intimidated or feel uncomfortable. In light of this, and in light of other complaints that I've received from some county commissioners, from the public, etc., about things that happened yesterday at the Clearwater Courthouse, things that happened at the Palm Harbor early voting site, etc. And I'm not sure whether these things actually happen, or we're in this mode where things are taking on a life of their own and things are being reported and then repeated and reported and repeated. I don't know. So what we're going to do to just get our arms around this and to make everybody feel comfortable is we're going to station deputy sheriffs at all 5 early voting sites while they're open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. from today through November 2nd, which is the last day of early voting. The deputies will be there to provide us a resource if anybody has any questions or concerns, and to just be that presence, and hopefully a calming presence, so that people know that they do have unfettered, unrestricted, unintimidated access to these early voting sites, and that the folks that are here advocating, the same thing applies, and that they can advocate for their candidates, and that there won't be any issues or any concerns. And also at the same time is that it'll stop this information flow that may be based upon things that are not happening. So that if we have people there, then I can talk to the deputies and we know exactly what's happening, what's not happening, and the rumor mill doesn't take over. So I think it's a prudent course at this juncture with where we are, to have uniformed deputies there just to provide that peace of mind and make sure that everything goes smoothly and that we can monitor it. And the premise of them being there, again, is on the positive side. And I hope what it does is make people feel comfortable. So if today these uniformed security personnel show up, we'll address it at that time and decide how we're going to handle it with them. And we'll go from there. But again, just them being here is not violative of the law. And what I hope is, by saying that we are going to put deputy sheriffs at each of the early voting sites, that those who, somebody did, and I don't know who, decided that they needed to have those security guards here will no longer feel that they need to have those guards here, because we're going to take care of it. And then that also eliminates the concern of others that just don't like the fact that you got security guards here that have gone down that path and think it's intimidation or coercion because they're not cops, etc. So I think by putting the deputies here, we accomplish a number of things, and I hope that it causes whoever hired those guards to realize that they don't need them, and we can just go back to the business at hand, which is people engaging in early voting, and we encourage people to come out and early vote and engage in the process. So what questions do you all have?
One to follow up on the incidents you said were reported at the Clearwater Courthouse and the Palm Harbor site. Were those like just miscommunications? What
Yeah, I mean, it's anecdotal, really, and it's things that got back that were passed along that were people were yelling and screaming at each other that they were, and then people throw around the terms and the terminology of intimidation and coercion and all, so people use those words, and just because they use those words, that doesn't mean what it is. And that, again, this was another, I think, an important reason to have the deputies there, because if we get reports that, at the Clearwater, downtown Clearwater site or the Palm Harbor site or this site, there's people out there and they're intimidating the voters, and then we got the deputies that can say, well, we're there and we're watching this and there's no intimidation going on, and if it, which we hope it doesn't, if somebody does engage in that, they can stop it before it gets to that point. I think a lot of what we were getting yesterday was, and I understand it, we are in a tough time and people are on the edge of their seats. And I think that this is information, if you will, that is unverified, that got passed on, and some may call it rumor mill. Because when I talked to the supervisor of elections and staff, is that there were no complaints at the site of any of that happening. So I'm not even sure it happened, but again, as they say, perception becomes reality, and let's just get our arms around this and make sure that we don't have any incidents going forward. That's my goal.
As you talked about the rumor mill quite a bit there, how is this a fear you guys have? How important is it to squash this before something gets tweeted and all of a sudden you have 200 pro or anti whatever group of people out here? How important is that for you?
Well, that's what I'm doing right now, and it is extremely important. And really asking everybody to do is just to take a breath. Let's be objective about it, and let's view this for what it is and what it's not. And right now, this is a non-event. This is a non-incident. There's absolutely no indication that those two, first of all, there's no indication that anybody, and let's just leave it at the presidential campaign level, there's absolutely no indication that anybody with the Biden campaign or the Trump campaign has done anything improper. Nothing on either side. There's no indication that the people who are here in uniformed security guards yesterday, that they did anything improper. In fact, everything we saw, they acted properly, and that they were just present. And so it's very important for people to understand that nothing improper on the part of the Biden campaign, nothing improper on the part of the Trump campaign, and nothing improper with the mere presence of those security guards, because they didn't do anything that would lead anybody to believe in any way that they engaged in any intimidation or coercion or anything improper. What gave people the concern was just their presence. And mere presence alone is not enough. And as I said, you can view that two ways. Some people may feel uncomfortable and some people may feel very comfortable with it. So it's very important that people understand what this is and what it's not, and that don't make this into something it's not. So yes, and as we're preparing for this now, I'm getting text messages from CNN. So now we're getting, where this has become, there's some national interest on it. So we don't want to let it get there. I think and hope that by positioning uniformed deputies at all 5 early voting sites, we do have a very comprehensive plan for Election Day. We divided the county into 19 different zones. We're working very collaboratively with all the city police departments, and there will be a significant number of police officers and deputy sheriffs throughout Pinellas County on Election Day to make sure that everything goes smoothly. I'll tell you this, and again, I was trying to avoid getting into too much of it, but I think at this point it's probably better to convey what we're doing, to let everybody know is that we're also going to use undercover personnel at some of these places just to monitor it. And the reason behind that is that, again, we're trying to avoid this factor of people feeling uncomfortable. And we don't have enough personnel to cover. There's about 165 different polling places, and we're not going to have somebody at every polling place on Election Day. But we do have 19 zones that are set up. There will be law enforcement in the area. We do have strong coordination. We will have a command post set up, and we will be able to respond to anything. And it will also be monitored by undercover personnel that will be roaming around the county, just making sure that nothing's happening that shouldn't be happening. So I think we have an effective plan, but it's extremely important that people understand that we have not seen anything here yet that is improper, and we don't want to let it take a life of its own, and the rumor mill is not good.
But Sheriff, why would someone need to have armed security guards outside of a polling?
I'm not going to, it would cause me, to speculate. And I think you need to ask them that, but, okay, with that said, is that people are on the edge of their seats. And, there has been, and I'm not, again, I gotta be careful about this. There have been incidents here in downtown St. Pete. There have been violent protests. There have been incidents at the pier where people were attacked. You had all the incidents on Beach Drive. You had stuff going on down here. So it is not outside the realm of some reasonable concern that there could be a problem and that they merely just wanted to make sure that there was no problem. I'm not saying that's the case, but you ask the question is to, why could? And it's causing me to speculate, which is probably something I shouldn't do. It's probably a dangerous thing to do. But my point in doing it is there's 2 sides to the coin. Is again, just because they're here, you shouldn't, nobody should, I shouldn't, nobody should assume that whoever caused those people to be here, caused them to be here with bad intent, and that is to intimidate voters. They very easily could have caused them to be here because they had genuine concern about the safety of their advocates because of some of the things that have happened here in downtown St. Pete over the last couple months. That is not outside the realm of feasibility and not outside the realm of reasonableness. But the exact reason why they did it, you got to ask them. I don't know.
Is there anything to be said about them saying they're with the campaign and the campaign blatantly saying that's not us, or does that fall back on their mere presence? Is that
if you're a line worker for a company and you get assigned by somebody that says, go to this site and this is what you're to do, who knows what they were told? Maybe they assumed that they were hired by the campaign. Maybe they could have been hired by some non-campaign. They could have been hired by a supporter. They could have been hired by one of the advocates who was here. So just because they say that they were hired by the campaign doesn't mean they're hired by the campaign. And that could be something that they misunderstood, something that was said innuendo. We don't know. And so absolutely should not jump to the conclusion that anybody affiliated with the Trump campaign was the cause of those people being here, because it's unsubstantiated. And the Trump campaign and the Republican Party of Florida say that they did not, unequivocally, hire, retain, cause anybody to be at this early voting site.
Is there any concern about this being on county property?
There is some concern about it, and we're going to try and provide a degree of flexibility with this. And for right now, as long as everything is maintaining status quo from what we're seeing this morning, I'm probably just going to leave it the way it is for right now. And if we have to make changes, and we've talked about this, and what we might do, and I talked to the people who are here, is we might ask them to move we may cordon off the county property, and not allow anybody on the county property and just have them be on the sidewalk on the right of way. But as long as it stays the way it is right now and we don't have any issues, then I'm probably just going to let them stay where they are. Again, trying to make this easy on everybody, and at the same time, make sure that people have unfettered access, nobody feels intimidated, and that everybody's rights on all sides are protected. That's the goal, and that's what we're trying to do. Trying to strike a good balance with that, and had a good conversation with the only people here now are the Biden people. They had a good conversation with them, and we'll continue to communicate with them, but for right now, we're just going to maintain the status quo.